Chapter 2 is about digital tools for technical communication, so both writing and presenting. We're going to talk about technical writing tools that includes all of our basic functions that you're probably very familiar with, as well as address generative and non-generative AI tools and how they are being currently used both in industry and in academic for writing. And then we're also going to talk about tools for professional communications that you may encounter in the workplace. So with basic word processing, so typing documents, commonly you're going to be familiar with Microsoft Word, Apple Pages, or Google Docs. The primary functions for these word processing features is that they give you an opportunity for formatting, doing sharing and collaborating, commenting. They offer proofreading services such as autocorrect, spell check, and grammar check. And there are additional extension tools that can be added to them. So for example, you can connect Zotero for citation services, or you can connect with an AI proofreading tool to give enhanced feedback on your writing. So there are numerous tools that you can embed within these various word processing features, and they all have some pros and cons. As USI students, you have access to Microsoft Word through Office 365. Although many individuals choose to use Google Docs because it's very easy to share and doesn't have any firewall issues with various institutions. So if you're collaborating with people outside of USI, sometimes using something like Google Docs is actually easier than using Office 365. If you're a Mac user, then you might be familiar with Apple Pages, although you can download the Microsoft Office suite for Apple, or again, use something like Google Docs. For spreadsheet and calculations, again, you would be most familiar with Excel, Apple Numbers, or Google Sheets. The same advantages and disadvantages apply for using things like our Office 365 suite or sharing Google Sheets for those outside of your organization. Apple Numbers would primarily be used by Mac users unless they had downloaded Excel or work with Google Sheets. Now, we do talk about some statistical analysis because of the presentation of data that takes place with technical writing, which means you also might be familiar with some statistical software. USI offers licensing for Minitab, so that is the most common software used here at USI. SPSS was created by IBM. It's extraordinarily robust and has great capabilities. It's a little harder to learn than Minitab, but you might find that in industry. Tableau and Jump are web-based platforms that oftentimes a single user doesn't have to pay anything for them if they're using the web interface. They're made to be very interactive, and their interface is meant to be one that's easily understood without additional training. In our statistics course here at USI, we will teach you how to use Minitab for your statistical calculations. And so those types of graphs and figures that are generated from Minitab can also be embedded into your technical reports or technical presentations. From a presentational standpoint, there's many offerings available now through web-based programming. Again, our main three we would think of would be Microsoft PowerPoint, Apple Keynote, or Google Slides. But there are software packages like Prezi, Canva, Visme, HaikuTech, and Powtown that all have web-based platforms that are often, again, used for free for individuals with some limits to functionality. These can often be exported into a different format or at minimum a PDF format for presentations. And they offer a lot of templates and creative solutions that you may not find with your standard PowerPoint, Keynote, or Slides presentations. So those are some benefits to using those types of presentations instead. Now, when we think about tools for writing, more and more you may be hearing about artificial intelligence with respect to writing. And there's really two forms of artificial intelligence that are used in conjunction with writing. And we're going to divide them up by non-generative and generative AI. For non-generative AI, it means it's not creating content for you, but it's reviewing your content. This can be very helpful with advanced proofreading skills beyond those tools that are already embedded in Microsoft Word or in Google Docs or in the Max software suite. They do provide suggested phrasing. They can look at the readability of your content and provide analytics on different types of writing that are being used. So when you're looking to do technical writing and you're wanting to make sure that you use an academic voice and that all of your grammar and punctuation is in accordance with a technical writing voice, as we discussed in chapter 1, tools like Grammarly or Hemingway app can be very, very helpful. Both of these have free versions available, and Grammarly can actually be added as an extension into Microsoft Office materials. This does make it very convenient. It's also important to note that for the full functionality of these software tools, they often require a paid license or subscription, and that Grammarly actually can have a generative AI for a fee as well. So as you look at various software tools that can assist with non-generative AI proofreading, there is limited functionality in free tools that are available to you, but there are other tools that are available for a fee. Generative AI, which you're probably most familiar with, like ChatGPT, actually creates the content for you. Now, there's some important notes to understand about AI, even the most recent versions, ChatGPT, GPT-4. The content that they're drawing from is at least 2 years old from the internet, and it does not distinguish between truth and fiction. So it might give you material from like Huffington Post or some other sarcastic, non-true source. It might pull from personal blogs, which have not been vetted and are just an individual writing their own content, or Wikipedia. So the generative tools are only able to pull from the existing internet. And again, it's cached, so it's typically 18 months to 24 months old. And they are not able to distinguish when you have a reputable source or not. So you can't necessarily always trust the content that has been created by a generative AI. Now, there are many people out there who are using it to say, write an essay on War and Peace. Well, War and Peace is something that's been read and assigned for countless generations. It's a very old book. And there's lots out there on the internet from people who actually did read War and Peace, or at least the Cliff Notes, and have written essays. And ChatGPT can pull together from those sources, and you could actually come up with your own unique document that would pass through Proctorio or SafeAssign or any other plagiarism proofing software that might be embedded in your learning management system. I think for Blackboard, the most common would be SafeAssign, which is testing to see if you have plagiarized by directly copying from internet sources. And these generative AI tools are sophisticated enough that they can actually rewrite other people's content in a way that creates it as unique content and will in fact fool your proofreading softwares. It will also probably fool your instructors, to be honest. The capability of their voice, the artificial intelligence voice, has become more and more human with every iteration that it draws from. However, you'll be doing an exercise which will give you an opportunity to compare what these generative tools can do compared to your own personal writing. And you'll see that there are distinct differences. So especially as someone who reads material from students every semester for decades now, I can tell you I still feel pretty confident of knowing whether or not an individual is submitting something that has been written by an AI device rather than the actual student. But it is becoming harder and harder to tell, which is one of the reasons that artificial intelligence is now integrated with academic dishonesty policies. So some things that you need to note for ethically using artificial intelligence. First of all, generative AI must be cited. You must give credit to the various types of AI that you have used if you are using content that was created by an AI. You also need to check it for correctness. Again, there are ways of seeing all of the sources that the AI used for completing the work, the prompt that you gave it. And it's your job to look at those sources to make sure that they are actually reputable sources and that you are not getting false content. Currently, there are no publications that accept generative AI as part of a work for publication. So if you're doing student research, or even as you look to do your senior design and have your materials go into the SOAR repository here at USI, it is not acceptable to use generative AI, even if you've cited it in publications. For the most part, universities have gone to considering generative AI as academic dishonesty, and you need to look at your syllabus for the requirements. Now, in this course, for example, our syllabus specifically states that you can use generative AI for the assignments that require you to do so. Otherwise, generative AI is prohibited. To be caught using generative AI and turning it in as your own work would result in an academic dishonesty filing, and that can result in failure of the assignment all the way to failure of a course. And if you have a history of academic dishonesty, it can you can end up being withdrawn from a course or suspended from the institution. So academic integrity is a really important thing in institutions, and generative AI has made this a little more difficult in some courses. I think a standard English course would have a little more issues than technical writing because so much of your writing is specific to the work that's being performed by experiments here in class. So you don't have as many opportunities in this course, but it's important for you to know what it can be used for, and where it's not appropriate to be used at all. For our class, if you are using generative AI for the ideation phase of your work, for example, you aren't familiar with something and you're looking to generate ideas, that's actually a really good use of AI. It can also help in the creation of outlines or creating logical flows. You're going to use it for your assignment as a comparison for content appropriateness. You're going to write your own original work and have a generative AI prompt that creates a similar work, and you're going to compare the two of them. That action is something that will give you the ability to see how AI differs from your own work. It can also be helpful for some research steps and make them a little faster. Like, for example, if you don't know what key terms you should be searching because the topic is unfamiliar to you, or if you're looking to understand what various resources may be available. If you're new to a field, you might not know all the different journals that are available in that field, and AI can be used to query that for you. Now, how you choose to use AI in your own personal life, I have students I know who generate recipes because they put in the ingredients that they have and ask for recipes that match those ingredients. And so there are some really fun things that you can do with AI that are very helpful. But for this course in particular, the use of generative AI outside of the individual assignment is limited to these items. You cannot use it for generating content except in the assignment that requires you to do so. And so again, if you have a subject matter that you're not familiar with, AI can help you explore topics in that. Or if no outline or template has been provided to you for an assignment, AI can help generate those outlines and templates that make it very easy for you to then create your own work. And then finally, it's always good to look at your spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and voice using these AI tools. They are more sophisticated than the embedded tools of Microsoft Word or Google Docs or Apple Pages. And so it does give you additional resources for your proofreading. And those things are very, very helpful. So we don't want to ignore the technology that can be helpful to us. We just want to make sure that we're using it in an ethically sound way. I do want to mention some other productivity tools that are specific to communication within organizations. Zoom you should be quite familiar with, and potentially Microsoft Teams, as both of those are tools that are used here at USI on a regular basis. You also might be familiar with Google Meet, as individuals use that a lot over the pandemic as a resource for connecting with others. Like Teams, to have a professional industry chat, Slack has become a place similar to Teams that companies can use. It's also helpful when you have individuals that are outside of different organizations collaborating together. So for example, some of my professional organizations use Slack as a productivity tool, And you can set up small group chats. You can do some live chat and video streaming. You can post documents and file structures, much of the same functionality that you have in Teams, you can have a Slack, but you can actually share materials back and forth, even though you're not from the same organization. So these are tools that you might come in contact, and it's important to note that when you are in your professional roles, all of the topics we've talked about for professional communications remain, even though you are using tools that might seem more informal. This link here below is actually a way of looking at all of these different productivity tools that are commonly used in industry today. And so you can see for email, Outlook and Gmail are kind of top hits. Data management, we see Google Sheets being mentioned. Conferencing, we see Zoom and Google Meet. Collaboration, you see Teams and Slacks. Writing, you see Grammarly and Google Docs. Graphics and design, we've got Canva, FreePic, and Envido, like mentioned that. If you haven't ever used a to-do list software, Evernote, Trello are both excellent for that. Notion and Google Keep are also similar. For forms and surveys, Google Forms are used quite often. Google SurveyMonkey often comes with a cost if you're sending it to too many people, so Google Forms has become really helpful for that. For data storage and sharing, Google Drive and Dropbox are probably the most frequently used. Dropbox is something that we can use also within our suites of software tools here at USI. For mind mapping exercises that can help make tree diagrams and do different types of project management work. Lucidchart is one that I have experience with and works quite well. In addition, for project management, again, we use from the Microsoft suite, you can use Microsoft Project, but if you needed something that was web-based, Asana is a very good option for that. And there are some automation, so programming language tools that are listed here at the bottom. And so these just give you an idea of how different productivity tools are being put to use in industry and some of the other softwares that you might come in contact with in your internships and in your professional work. I think it's helpful to consider these and explore them, spend some time with them, and see how they might be useful to your own time here as a student, in addition to completing any of your course assignments. And that concludes the material associated with Chapter 2.